And
Do you care if it's in a little bit, the mic?
If it's better if he's not, but do you have
It's in like this much.
Okay. So like this is better, but do you have a good...
Yeah, it's okay if it's in a little. That's better. And I think without the mask, it'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay, you're live now. Now it's live, Roger. Now we're starting.
hello, everyone. Welcome to this special election night version of News Now, the Belmont Journal's update on what's going on in Belmont. I'm your host, Roger Colton. We'll be receiving election results in about a half hour. It is now about 8 o'clock here in the town of Belmont. Belmont is facing an unusual election day today. It is unusual on a number of different levels. For example, first, unlike last year in 2019, where there were 0 contested races, the Belmont ballot this year has any number of contested races, and not simply contests where there is one person more running than positions that are available, but a number of candidates that exceed the positions available. In contested races this year, we have at the top of the ballot the Belmont School Committee. For the Belmont School Committee, there are 2 positions that are open. There are 5 candidates running for those positions for 3-year terms on the school committee. For the Belmont Housing Authority, there is 1 position open for a 5-year seat. The partial year term is not a contested race, but for the 5-year seat, we have Belmont activist and MD who would be running for her first term on the Belmont Board of Health. Of course, at the top of the ballot, and what I mean by the top of the ballot is perhaps the most contested race in this spring election, is the proposed operating override. The select board, the warrant committee, and other town officials have recommended that Belmont voters approve an operating override of just over $6 million. There is an active no campaign on the override. The no override now. The no campaign is arguing or is stating that simply that at this point in the COVID crisis, it is not the time and place to increase property taxes to Belmont small businesses and to Belmont homeowners. We'll see how that happens. The operating override is on the ballot because of a state law called Proposition 2.5. Proposition 2.5 provides that a community, with some limited exceptions, but a community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts may not increase its property taxes by more than 2.5% without an affirmative vote of the electorate. And Proposition 2.5 applies to the town of Belmont. I mentioned what the no campaign has been arguing or has been asserting with respect to the override. The yes campaign takes a different tact. The yes campaign argues that the town of Belmont is facing what they call a structural deficit. What a structural deficit means is that the town's budget, its expenses, if you will, are increasing by more than 2.5% per year. And when your expenses increase by more than 2.5% and your revenue is limited to an increase of only 2.5%, the town government is placed in the position where they must go back to the people to get approval to continue to increase taxes in order to meet the community's budget. It is an interesting year this year in the town of Belmont. After a year with no contested races, there is a feeling of anti-incumbency on some levels. The incumbent school committee members are being challenged. Both incumbents have been running for re-election. 2 incumbents running for re-election, and there are 3 challengers to those 2 incumbents. The belief by those challengers and the campaigns of those challengers have been based on an assertion that the current school committee has not adequately listened to the community, and the issue revolves around when and whether Belmont school kids will be, if you can call high school kids, whether Belmont school kids whether and when Belmont school kids will return to school, whether there will be an all remote learning, whether and when the hybrid learning will continue, or whether and when kids will go back to school in person full time. And there is a substantial portion of the community who believes that the community has not been listened to, and in contrast, the incumbents are arguing that they're doing the best the best they can in an impossible situation. Do we have an So there are a number of interesting questions that are being presented by today's election here in Belmont. One thing we do not know yet is the extent of the turnout in Belmont. Earlier this fall, during the primaries and, of course, during the general election, there was a huge Belmont turnout on election day. Municipal elections tend to be lower turnout elections. One thing we don't know is the extent to which there were walk-in voters today. We don't know yet the extent to which there were walk-in voters, and conversely, the extent to which there were voters who voted in writing. We're standing here at Town Hall right next to the drop box where people who could vote and did vote by absentee ballot could simply bring their ballots into Town Hall, drop them off, have Ellen, our town clerk, Belmont's town clerk, pick those absentee ballots up and count them without people going to their polls and voting in person and subjecting themselves to the possible.
Say, those of you watching on Facebook, welcome.
I would like to welcome everybody who is going on in the community of Belmont, not only within the town government, but within the community itself. I invite folks who are watching tonight to watch the Belmont Journal's series on Belmont's small businesses. One of the sectors of the community that has been hard hit by COVID-19 are the community's small businesses, whether they be restaurants, whether they be the variety of retail service or retail providers in the town, whether they be service providers in the town. Belmont's small businesses are marching forward, and we have been introducing the community to those small businesses through our regular series. One interesting thing that has been presented by this year's election.
Roger! Fancy meeting you here!
Hi.
Oh,
Yeah.
seriously, I thought you were going to be doing this via Zoom, and I said, that's boring. I want to be where the action is. I want to be live at Town Hall. It's so exciting, isn't it? Oh, sorry guys, I'm not looking at the camera. It's been a very long day. I've been up since 7 a.m. I went to Beach Street Center first thing this morning because there's 2 races in that precinct. Tried to talk to people. A lot of people don't want to talk to me though, you know, but I did get to talk to a lot of people holding signs. They talked to me, Roger, but the voters, they were kind of quiet.
What are you hearing from when you're out at the various precincts, the people who do talk to you?
Yes. The people who talked to me did vote yes. They did vote yes, a lot of people that talked to me. And I did not see, maybe it was the time of day, because it was 8:30 in the morning. I don't know about you, Roger, but I did see more yes signs being held around town. I did not see a lot of no's, but I think the no people came out after. I was a little too early today. But, you know, I also had to go to a opening tour for Roach Brothers in Watertown, believe it or not. I had other things to do today because I do cover 2 towns and not just Belmont, but this is a big day for Belmont. There's no doubt about it.
So I'd actually like to take you down further, down the ballot further. In addition to people being concerned about the override and people being interested in the school committee race, are people talking about the races down ballot, the Housing Authority and the Board of Health?
I haven't heard a lot of talk about those races, truthfully. And when I interviewed people about it, I got a lot of people saying they were going to just vote for the incumbents, or some people said they skipped the question altogether, which I found interesting. But again, this was just a handful of random voters that were willing to talk to me.
Do you have a feel for the turnout today?
Yes, I was steady throughout the day. That's exactly what Town Clerk Ellen Cushman told me.
So that may be larger for a municipal election, but a typical municipal election.
That's a good question. I think it'll be interesting to see when the results come in, because don't forget there were absentee ballots. A lot of people did vote absentee because they were still afraid of COVID and don't want to, be around other people. So
were the people, and this isn't meant to be a pejorative question, but were the people that you talked today civil in their discourse? There's been some lack of civility, one might say, throughout the campaign. What did you hear?
What lack of civility would you be referring to, Roger?
Well, it seems like people are angry, and
I agree. I can honestly tell you, there was a lot of pressure on me from both sides. You know, oh, you put the yes picture. Why didn't you put the no picture? I mean, it was like I had to be fair to both sides, and that was, you know, that could be challenging at times because I don't really have control over how the print paper's laid out anymore. And I also had, believe it or not, cancellations. People got the no override now sticker ad on their front page, and they decided they wanted to cancel their subscription. I have no control over ads. Those are paid ads, and the no override campaign bought a sticker for every week leading up to the election. I had no control over that. So yeah.
I'd like to ask you to speculate for a minute. Given the campaigns that are going on, do you foresee an impact on town meeting? And what I mean by that is there an increased interest in who gets elected to town meeting in the different precincts?
I'm going to definitely say there's definitely a lot of newcomers running this election. There were 3 races in precincts 3, 5, and 6. About 15 people running for 12 seats in those precincts. So there's definitely a lot of new blood. A lot of people who are throwing their hat in the ring. Maybe they want change, you know?
One thing I think you're familiar with is what's going on at the high school. And it seems to me, as an observer, that there's a lot of activism in this particular election amongst the high school population. And I try hard not to call them kids, but amongst the high school students.
That's true. Yeah.
Do you see that?
Well, I did see it. There was definitely a group of high school kids that helped make a video in support of a couple of videos in support of the Yes campaign. Yep. They definitely were very, and they sent letters to the paper in support of it as well.
And is the feeling that there is a change that might extend beyond this year in the activism of the high school kids, or is this an election specific?
I think our high school kids are
Oh, we got a picture?
But the bike isn't there.
No, I know. I understand that. I'm just looking at the stream.
No signal, so.
No, I'm just looking at the stream. Okay. All right. We're back. Once you say we're back, folks.
We're back here at Town Hall. Welcome back. This is live coverage of Belmont's municipal election. We're expecting results to be announced here at or about 8:30, and we will keep you up to date, and we will bring you those results immediately as soon as the town clerk comes out and tells us that the results have been compiled. Joanna, I'd like to ask you one more question about the campaigns themselves. As the senior multimedia journalist for Wicked Local Belmont, have you noticed a difference in the campaigns this year, meaning a reliance upon the newspaper versus a reliance upon virtual media, or perhaps even a reliance on the Belmont Media Center?
Well, I definitely think people rely on letters of support. The strong campaigns, they get a lot of people to write letters of support, commentaries. So I did see a lot of those this year, and I see that's just normal for every town election. When there's a race, there's a lot of letters, a lot of commentaries. And as far as Belmont Media, I think it was great. You interviewed all the candidates. We had debates. There were several debates. There was League of Women Voters, Council on Aging, the Belmont Buzz. So it was good to see that, because there were 3 races plus an override. I don't recall in my 10-year history that much going on in one election. My 10-year history as the journalist for Belmont.
As you cover town government, you cover the select board, you cover the various committees, you cover the school committee in your day job. I guess this is your day job. That have you noticed more of an interest in being involved with town government? And the question which I'm trying to ask is whether the campaigns have a spillover effect into government participation as well. People who are interested in the yes campaign or the no campaign then say, well, I want to be the person on the warrant committee, or I want to be the person on the financial task force.
Well, are you saying like when the election's over that these people might continue to be active?
Or just what's the chatter, or what's the talk? I'm working on the assumption that you talk to members, you're exposed to members of the community.
I definitely want to say that Zoom has increased participation in meetings across the board, especially school committee and select board, which has been a very challenging year, and parents have wanted their kids back in school. So I definitely think more parents are involved that were never involved before. And that's why this election was very important to them. And I just hope that maybe, when it's over, they will continue to be active. I know a lot of people also ran for town meeting because they wanted change. They didn't like what they were seeing anymore. So,
have Zoom? What lessons can we take forward from Zoom, other than perhaps is it simplistic simply to say that Zoom has taught us that it's necessary to pay attention?
Zoom makes it easier to pay attention, I would say. Zoom makes it easier because you don't even have to leave your house. You don't have to put your camera on if you don't want to, But Zoom's not going to go away. That's one thing that COVID has changed. We have Zoom, and it's probably here to stay. It's a new way of having meetings. Maybe they'll have hybrid, where you can do some in person but give people the option for remote. That'll be up to the legislature in the long run.
Have you talked to town officials in recent days? What are they expecting to come out of tonight?
Truthfully, I haven't talked to town officials, but I will probably talk to them after tonight. See what the outcome will be. We'll see what the outcome will be, and how I'd like to get reactions from the select board, on the outcome of the override. But it's quite clear to me they were all in support of the override. and they came out, they endorsed it publicly. So, and so I believe the school committee did too.
Were there areas of town or precincts that were more active?
Well, I will say the precinct that I live in, which is precinct 2, I definitely saw more no signs than yes signs. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of precinct 2 tonight on that ballot question. I'm curious to see if the no vote wins in precinct 2, because like I said, I did see a lot of no signs in that precinct. So we'll see. I definitely think it'll be interesting to see how the precincts vote on that ballot question.
And I was thinking of,
we got some numbers.
Oh, good.
So Franklin, do you want to come on up? Yeah. Numbers.
Okay, I'll get out of the way.
thank you, Joanna.
Can you just step back a little bit, Roger? You're right. Go over here. Come on over there. Right there. You want to stand right next to me.
And we do want to thank Joanna Juvelis, who is the senior multimedia journalist for Wicked Local Belmont, who has been talking to us. We're now joined by Franklin Tucker, who is the editor and publisher of the Belmontonian, Belmont's online source for hyperlocal news. Franklin, you've got, we haven't heard from Ellen. You must have numbers.
Yeah, I just have precinct 2 numbers, which is from Town Hall. As you would expect, the school committee race is one of the most popular ones. Here it's been just, Megan Moriarty and Jamal Saha having about, Megan has 689 votes. Jamal has 648. Ms. Donner, the incumbent, Tara Donner, 201. Evelyn Gomez, 200. And Mr. Flood had 99. Well, you have to realize this is also Megan Moriarty's precinct, so she may have had a bit of an advantage. But these are pretty stark numbers. Now, the numbers that you want to hear about the override, this has been a precinct where you saw a lot of no on the override, and it showed in the vote. 730 no's, and for yes, 409. So. Now what? and that's the real question. Now what? You know, if this holds throughout the town, and I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but you know, sometimes these things are just they steamroll. You know, what we're going to have is we're going to have a school committee with 2 very populist, two populists who are now on the school committee. They don't have a majority. They're still 2 of 6. But they certainly can, change the direction or maybe change the approach of the school committee. But with the override, if this shows town-wide, then the question is now what? And we do know. I mean, back in January, the town and the schools came out with what happens if we don't have a override budget, and it's not stark, but it's certainly damaging to the schools, and it'll hurt. Every department in town. You know, there will be a firefighter who'll be laid off. There will be a police officer laid off. There'll be 6 to 8 teachers laid off, and most of those will be elementary school teachers. So,
And Kim, can we back up for just a minute?
Sure.
Well, you talk about precinct 2, and you know where precinct 2 is, and I know where precinct 2 is. But can you explain to our viewers?
Precinct 2 is basically Belmont Hill and going down Concord Avenue, what is called Upper Concord Avenue, heading down towards the country club. So we're talking about the most, the area that is, I would say, populated by people who can afford $2 million, $3 million homes, to give you an idea.
And what is there are a precinct that the remaining precincts become, I don't know if I want to say less relevant, but less relevant because it's difficult to overcome that lead.
That's right. 329, a difference of 329 is significant. I mean, you'd have to come up with at least 100 in each of the other districts to have some kind of room where you can And the Yes campaign had a lot of momentum. Just people were saying this is not the right time. And then, of course, I told you a little bit about what the what cuts are going to be coming in. Well, the structural deficit, which is the reason for the override, it's not going away. So we're looking at next year between a $9.5 to a $10 million override request. That's going to be next April. Now, these people who are saying it's not the time. Is it the time next year for even a higher override? So there's going to be a question of that. And we do know there's already hints. If that override doesn't pass, let's say the override in 22 doesn't overpass, likelihood we could see the Belmont Center fire station closed. We could see large cuts in all public safety, and of course the schools would be really devastated. So where does it end? Where do you come up with a commitment towards trying to end that strategic that deficit that we have? Now there are people who said, look, let's go through a structural, let's see if we can restructure the budget. Let's see if we can get more money somewhere else through a number of things. And we do have a working group that's going through that. Maybe next year at this time we'll have, enough cuts where the populace will say, okay, that's good. We'll support the 10 million. But if you're not going to support a 6.2, are you going to support a 10?
And you're looking forward, or you're looking out a year. Let me pull you back.
Sure thing.
A little bit. Because ultimately the decision maker on town budgets is town meeting. Will a yes vote or a no vote have any immediate impact on what occurs at town meeting, or does it really all come out of the school committee and the select board?
It really comes out to where the way the budget is structured in this town is we have a town-wide budget. Everybody works together and to decide where the budget is going to be done. We don't battle out the budget like some communities do at town meeting. This is much more of where we know what's going to be coming forward. It goes through a number of watchdog groups, such as the Warrant Committee and Financial Task Force in the last couple of years. So it really is something that is already baked in the books, but who knows? Because people can make objections and they can ask for a review at town meeting. We've seen it before, and not in a big way, But there have been people who are saying, why are we paying so much money for the senior administrators in town? Why do we have so many? Somebody even put up a thing that said, why do we have 8 precincts? Why don't we have 2? That could save money. So there could be people who come at town meeting and request that something is looked over. Usually the budget part of the town meeting is it's just basically an easy night, to say the least, because people approve the budget because they've been told what it is and it's gone through the Warrant Committee and all those things.
I'd like you to back up.
Pause for just a second. Tell folks just stand by.
Stand by. We will be right back to Belmont's Town Hall.
Please, then. I gotta go. Bye.
So she could come out at any second, so just be ready for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rolling.
Franklin, welcome back. We are standing here at Belmont's Town Hall, and we will bring you live election results from the Belmont municipal election as soon as possible. Franklin, let's go back and hear those vote totals again. We have vote totals from Precinct 2.
That's right. We have, for the override, it was 409 yes, 730 no. For the school committee, it was Megan Moriarty, who is from this district, precinct I should say, with 689. Jamal Saha came in second with 648. And then the two incumbents, Tara Donner and Evelyn Gomez had 201 and 202, and Mr. Flood had 99. And as for the Board of Health, it was Mr. Fiore with 449, and I have Adriana Allen, 361, which is a good showing for a first-time person. And for the Board of Health, it is Ann Mann with 450.
The Housing Authority.
Housing Authority, I'm sorry. I got that mixed up. Ann Mann with 450, and Tommy Olson, who is the incumbent, 447.
Now, my question to you is, you've been covering town elections for a long time. Are these vote totals typical? Are they high? Are they low?
Actually, it's a little lower in terms of total numbers from the last override year we had, which was 215. So I think people did come out, but they maybe have just a little bit lower numbers than we saw in 250. Now, this is, again, one precinct of 8. We don't know how the numbers look like in other precincts, but we'll find that out pretty soon.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can we bring in Ralph Jones here?
How are you?
Good evening, Ralph. We're speaking with former Select Board member Ralph Jones. Ralph has been involved with the school committee. He has been a member of the school committee, been a member of the warrant committee, been a member of the Select Board. Ralph, what are you thinking is going to come out of tonight?
Well, I think so far what we've seen unofficially is that Megan Moriarty and Jamal Sia, with 6 out of 8 precincts, have an overwhelming lead, 3,000 roughly each to 1,000 for the incumbents. So I think that the two non-incumbents are going to win.
Is your belief, and you've been involved with at least one of those campaigns.
Yes.
Is this an anti-incumbent vote, or is it an expression of anger about everything that's gone wrong in the last year?
Oh, I think it's basically a statement that for the past year, our school committee, unlike many others in the state and many others in the nation, have kept children out of schools. And the two candidates who are, I think, winning were trying to provide advice about how the schools could open, but the school committee and the school administration did not heed that advice. And I think the parents have spoken and the citizens have spoken, saying we would have preferred that our children had an opportunity to have in-person instruction like most of the rest of the children in New England. And I think that's what basically turned the election.
As you have talked to members of the community, is are the opinions that are driving the school committee race also driving votes on the override?
That I don't know. Clearly in Precinct 2, both Jamal and Meg won, and the override lost. So I don't know how those are combined. Basically, both Jamal and Meg supported the override in their statements to the community, and yet the override lost at least in Precinct 2.
What if anything, do you think will be taken out of this election, either from the school committee races or from the override campaigns?
Well, I hope, and to a large extent, I'm speaking now not only for myself, but also for a lot of other former school committee members whom I've been speaking with since September. And I hope that the message will be that we would like to see a school committee that doesn't wait for things to happen, but rather acts, and acts decisively. And I think had they done that back when the order came out from DESE in June, rather than waiting, we might have had children back in school much earlier than now, and they're only back in school now because DESE has again ordered that it be done. And I think it was the right thing to do, and we should have done it sooner.
Let's look forward now, and without expressing any opinion about what Ralph's unofficial vote totals were, but is there an expectation of what will happen next year as well?
I have no idea about next year. Next year will entirely depend upon who's running, who the candidates are, and what the issues are at that time, so I really can't say.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Ralph.
Thank you.
We have Mark Palillo.
Thank you. I was just, thank you very much. I was just coordinating with the town clerk as to when I could be sworn in. She said when the results come in. So I have an early morning organizational meeting, and I want to make certain I'm on time for that. Nice to see you, Roger. How are you?
Thank you, Mark. I'm doing well. Mark Palillo is an unopposed candidate for Belmont Select Board. He has served the community of Belmont on the Select Board previously, and decided that given the challenges facing the town of Belmont, now was the time for his expertise to be reintroduced to the Select Board.
Right, exactly.
What do you see coming out of today's election?
Well, I'm hearing some results on the override, which is disappointing, but certainly I think what I'm hearing is what I said candidate night is I feel as though that the town government, two things. One is I think there's a lot of division in town, and I'm very concerned about that. I've seen that in these campaigns, and I think it's up to the Select Board to sort of bring the community together, and whatever happens tonight on this vote, it seems to be trending more towards the no than the yes. We have a lot of work to do to sort of move past our differences and work together, because we really are in a financial crisis, and we have to do a lot more work around transparency and uniting this community to make everyone understand that we really do need to do something about the hole that we're in from a financial point of view. So I think I'm going to work with my colleagues and uniting the town and focusing on those issues in particular. And I also think that what I've heard to some extent, Roger, and I've had a number of sort of Zoom campaign events, which was kind of fun to do, that there are a number of residents in town who feel as though town government has stopped listening to their concerns. And I think we need to, I'm not criticizing anyone, but that's what I was hearing, and I think that we need to sort of be more available. I mean, maybe in the middle of a pandemic, that's always challenging to be available, but I think going forward, we need to be more available and listen to residents' concerns. And I know in this term, I said this last time I served, I did some of that. I'm going to do a lot more this time to reach out to the residents, have more office hours, and listen to everyone's concerns. So we have a lot of work to do.
So one thing I just heard you say, I think, is that committees such as the Warrant Committee maybe need to become more political, not political with a capital P, but more public and less analytic?
I think the Warrant Committee does great work. They're incredibly talented, really smart people. But I think what we haven't done as effectively, and look, I'm reflecting on my 9 years as well, Roger, is make available to the community more transparently our finances. I'm not certain we do that as effectively as we can. Perhaps it's the Select Board, in conjunction with the school committee, school department, and town administrator's office, and the Warrant Committee. I think the Warrant Committee does really, having served for 6 years, they work really hard. But I do believe that there needs to be a lot more openness and transparency around our financial situation, because I've been there. I know the numbers. We are in a deep financial hole that we're not going to get out of anytime soon. And so we have a lot of work to do over the next year. In fact, this override goes down to really focus on perhaps next year putting another one on the ballot, if we can convince our residents that, in fact, there is a need. I believe there's a need, but I think there's a lot more work to do to convince many of the residents in town that there is.
One thing I've been asking other candidates is what role town meeting plays, because Belmont's a town meeting. It's a town. It's town meeting is the legislature. It votes yes or no on the budget. Should town meeting be more activist on the budget?
Absolutely. I absolutely think they should. I mean, they're the legislative body. They're the appropriating body, Roger. You know that, right? We can only recommend a budget, but at the end of the day, it's town meeting that appropriates the funds. So, you know, I know we have town meeting that they're very active town meeting members. I mean, a lot of the folks that have served for a number of years are very active in the community, but I think they can be more active around the budget. I mean, I think we need to involve them more than we have. I mean, typically what happens, as you know, during the sort of the segment B, the budget goes up there and some folks are sort of questioning it, and perhaps there hasn't been as much involvement from town meeting members as there needs to be. So we have to really think about things in a much different way, I believe, in terms of our budgeting process and other issues in town. And I look forward to serving with Adam. Will be the chair, I think, and with Roy. I've served with Adam before. I think we served effectively and collaborated well, and I look forward to serving with Roy. And I think we as a board have to come together, put aside our differences perhaps, and sort of try to unite this community around common goals and issues that we're faced with.
If, let's assume for the minute that the override goes down tonight, what do you tell the yes voters tomorrow morning?
I'm sure they're really tired and they'll be incredibly disappointed. I'll thank them for their efforts. You know, look, both campaigns worked really hard, and I'll say, look, I believe that you had it right in terms of the need. And so hopefully that you can stay engaged and active. I'm certainly going to ensure that the communication around the budget need and the financial crisis that we're in is more effectively communicated to the community. And so I'll thank them for their efforts. I think, look, the No campaign, they're residents as well. So both sides of the coin here are residents of this community. The No campaign felt that the timing wasn't right, there wasn't a need, and the Yes campaign, of course, felt that there was. I was on the yes side. I voted for it, but I can certainly understand the concerns of the No campaign. We need to reach out to those individuals as well and understand what is it that you have concerns about around our budgeting process, trying to get them to align more with the need going forward, that eventually we are going to need another override, and I think perhaps next year we'll see.
Is there a feeling that there perhaps is a need for change at the financial planning level? So different people on the warrant committee or different people on the...
Well, I'll leave
or
that
is
up
it
to
just a matter of
Roger, I think it's conversation. If you look at the warrant committee, I think it's an incredibly talented group. It's within the purview, of course, within the town, the moderator to appoint members, and they're always very smart and very talented group of folks. And I think the select board needs to, and they're very active, right, in the budgeting process, but I see them as perhaps moving forward from a financial planning point of view, taking a more active role around financial planning more than they have historically, because we really need that support. I'm not certain it makes sense to form another financial task force 3, if you will. I think this one was highly effective, and it was really well led by Tom Caputo, and I want to thank Tom for his efforts, and hopefully he stays engaged in town government. But I really see the warrant committee, it's like the finance committee in Arlington. They're more active from a planning perspective, if you know how Arlington works. And I think the warrant committee, we need to engage them more around financial planning and modeling and things of that nature. I mean, really to lay that out in a more sort of expansive, transparent way.
Can you, I'd like to step away from the financial implications.
Yes, sir. Of course.
And talk about political engagement. Do you believe, or how would you characterize the impact of an override vote on forcing the community to become politically engaged?
Well, I mean, you saw the activity, right? So it seems to me that we become more engaged when there's a crisis, right? And so that's fine, right? There's a financial crisis, and there's two sides of the coin, if you will. It's an activist community, but I think the folks that were involved in those campaigns and others need to be active on other issues. We're not just facing budget matters. We're facing climate change issues. I think we need to get back to. I've said this to you on your show. I think we have a pathway here on climate action that we need to re-engage in a more active way. I really feel strongly about that. I also think that, we've been spending 9, 10, 12 years on a community path. We need to move that forward in a more positive way as well. And, I think there are other issues in town on affordable housing and other matters that we need to address. So it isn't just about the budget. My hope is that the folks that were involved on the financial aspects of this campaign, the yes and the no campaign, also support efforts around some of the other issues that I think are facing not only this town, this state, but this country. I think we need to do a lot more there, and that's what I'm going to try to do with my colleagues moving forward.
Is your belief that a vote today reflects a concern about the economic implications of COVID, or is it more deeply rooted than that?
I think two things. I think that we always felt in the task force at the time it was going to be challenging. Look, we're coming out of a pandemic, and I think a lot of folks in town are likely, we've all been impacted economically. I think some more than others. And so we always felt that the timing wasn't perfect for this. We felt that there was a need in the financial task force, but we also felt that the timing was not ideal. So I think clearly that played into it. I think there was also, confusion around the American Rescue Plan funds that came to town, and
which are the federal.
Look, financial task force met multiple times. The meetings were open. We need to reflect on what we could have done better. I'm not saying that we didn't do a good job. What I'm saying is that what we could have done better inform and ways to be more effective around communicating that need.
One way to communicate.
Long term, it's not sustainable, because we can't continue to have this significant overrides presented to our residents when we need to do other buildings in town, like the library and the skating rink and some other things that we need to accomplish. So, yeah, you know what, Roger, that's a fair point that when we use the word structural deficit, the average person in town, because they're not plugged into these issues, say, what does that mean? What do you mean structural deficit? Help me explain that to me. And I try to here, not effectively, I'm sure, but we need to do a better job of explaining that as well.
And I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
I probably have a dozen more questions.
No, I love talking with you, so that's great. I'll come on your
question.
show anytime. Yeah.
One thing that it seemed as though Belmont had fixed a couple of years ago was the fissure between the town side of the budget and the school side of the budget. Do you worry that fissure
time, Ralph was on it with me and Angelo initially. We said, you know, one budget, one Belmont, you know, however term you want to use it, means it's one budget. We're one Belmont, we have one budget, and that means together. And, you know, I think, you know, when David Kale came in, he sort of worked with John Phelan and Tony DiColigiero to sort of construct one budget. I think this fissure has occurred. My sense is there's tension, and look, it's a very tense time, right? I don't think there's as large a fissure as there was in 2010, but clearly I think there's been a separation. And I think we need to get back to working together. It's not about the schools, it's not about the town, it's about Belmont. And I think that we need to do what's best for the town of Belmont, which, you know, is invest in our schools, invest in our infrastructure, and ensure that we continue to provide the level of town services that our residents expect. I mean, that to me is the three things I focus on. And I think we need to come together on that. And I look forward to working with the school committee and school administration on a path forward here.
Now, Mark, please stand by. We will be right back to Belmont's Town Hall.
Okay, are we done? No, you want one more question? I'm happy to answer another question. Yeah.
You would?
Yeah, of course, sure, yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
Let people know we're expecting results any moment.
Okay. We are back on the steps of Belmont's Town Hall. We are expecting election results on the townwide election any moment now. I have with me, however, Mark Palillo, who will soon again be a member of the Belmont Select Board. He is a former member of the Select Board. He was running unopposed for the Select Board this year. Mark, you're chair of the Belmont Council on Aging.
Yes.
You've been on the Select Board for any number of years before taking some
9
time
years.
off.
Yeah, right.
Is assuming, and we don't know, assuming that the no vote prevails tonight,
Yes, sir.
is there anything that is off the board in terms of cuts?
You know, that's a hard question to answer. I think you have to look at the budget up and down, and I think we need to get in. I mean, from my point of view, it's really a prioritization. What are the services that are most important to our residents, you know, first and foremost. Now, we're probably going to have to debate that, and I also want to ensure within the schools, and I also think we need more social worker assistance with
The town needs to come up with $6 million.
Yep.
You don't reach $6 million by cutting $10,000 here and
That's right.
$50,000 somewhere else.
Yeah.
You really need to look for the big pots of money.
I know, and you know, I hope that we don't bankrupt the capital because we always seem to do that. I mean, there is a need to continue to invest in our infrastructure, and there's going to be a lot of hard work ahead of us here. We'll have to understand what if additional funds are coming from the federal stimulus money, you know, beyond the million. I know on our reserves, we were very we approached it in a very good way in terms of we wanted to ensure that our reserve policies were adhered to. Perhaps we have to sort of reconsider that point of view to some extent. I mean, you always don't want to use one-time funds for operating purposes, but we may have to draw down a little bit more there. I'm concerned about the reserve policy. We want to make sure we adhere to that. We did have pretty flush, amount of free cash that we were able to use over the next 3 years. So we'll have to take a look at that as well. So we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and really look at this.
And Mark, I'd like again to have you call upon your experience, for your previous experience on the select board. What is the danger that you mentioned the capital budget? That's what brings us to mind.
Yeah.
What is the danger that the operating budget gets cut, maintenance expenses get cut, and in the long-term capital budget, the capital budget skyrockets?
Yeah, of course.
Because
right.
buildings, roads don't get taken care of.
Yeah, we haven't invested. Look, have we invested as much in maintenance as we should have? No. Have we invested more than we have had historically? Absolutely. But there's the list is endless, right? So there's a need to continue to ensure that our buildings are maintained. There's a need to ensure that we continue to invest in our infrastructure, roads and sidewalks, for pedestrian safety in particular. So I'm not looking to cut significant dollars there. We'll have to see, Roger. We'll have to prioritize where the need is most acute. But we can't. That's a fool's errand, because that just sort of bankrupts the future from a capital point of view, and the list is endless. I think the long-term capital planning committee, what I would ask them to do as they launch in their mission is that we really need to develop a long-term capital investment plan. Where are our priorities? Where do we want to invest? How much do we want to spend? On maintenance? Arlington does a more effective job on that. I mean, they allocate a certain percentage of their budget every year to capital. Every year, we do push money towards capital, but we don't invest enough. And so, I think we need to look more carefully at that, because there's a balance, right? I mean, we also don't want to bankrupt town services, right, and what our residents expect. But we can't just say, okay, well, we're going to defer capital for now, because I think when you defer something from a capital point of view, it costs you more down the line.
One thing that I think it's important to think about as well, and it's important for people to hear your opinion, is whether Belmont is unique in the struggles that we're going through now. I mean, is it something about Belmont and the way it's operated, or is it the nature of the beast?
Yeah, so it's not unique. I mean, look, if you look at the surrounding communities, many of them have had operating overrides that have been successful. But if you look at how they're structured, so for example, we have 3 to 4% commercial base. We don't have a split rate, so it's really all the burden is on our residents. The new high school, of course, which I supported, is going to be on our residents, and we have very few commercial establishments in town. And I'm not looking to, really, there's no more developable space anyway, but we're not looking to put high-rise commercial establishments in town. That's the quality of life here at Belmont, right? You look at a Watertown or a Cambridge, they have a lot more commercial, establishments. You look at Arlington, has passed several overrides, but they have more homes to spread that tax burden over, right? If you think about it, I think they have a lot, maybe double the amount of, I think their square mile, I think they're more denser community than Belmont, and they're not much larger. But certainly they have a lot more homes that sort of the tax burden can be sort of spread amongst those homes. And I think that's why they've had a lot of success in Winchester as well. So I think we are unique in certain characteristics where we rely primarily on our residents to sort of fund our budget. We do get good state aid, but and Chapter 70 has gone up over the years. But could we use more? Absolutely. But then I think about the inner city, right? Inner city and other communities from an education point of view, they need it more than we do, frankly. So I think we need to. I've always said that we need state aid. I said we can't rely on state aid and external forces to help us balance our budget. We need to do it here in Belmont, and I think that's what we need to focus on. So we got a lot of work to do. Perhaps over the next year, we can sort of bring everybody together so that they can more fully understand that there is going to continue to be a structural deficit and a need for additional resources. But I think we need to also do work on managing more effectively, the expense side as well.
I would like to ask you about public participation and public participation even in the short term. One of the discussions that has occurred over the last few weeks is about the federal aid and what it will be used for.
Yep.
Is there a role for the public to play in deciding how and where and how much
Absolutely.
of that federal aid gets used?
Yeah, Roger. I mean, look, the select board, we serve the residents. We serve you, we serve our constituencies. I'm a resident, I'm a taxpayer as well, right? But we're not here to make unilateral decisions. We're here to listen to what our residents want, and I think we need to do more of that. My plan is to have office hours every other week, twice a week. Because I think I've always said I wanted to do more about that, and I want to do even more because I think getting the input, and now that we have Zoom, we can do it more effectively. I used to go down the library for office hours, and no one would show up because no one really doesn't have the time to drive down to the library and meet me. And so I think when you have the ability to now use Zoom that we've all gotten so used to, you can have office hours. And I've done a number of across the political spectrum in town and listened to resident concerns on both sides of the aisle, if you will, on this issue, on the override. And I always think that I know all the answers. We all do at times, right? But I think listening to our residents can tell us where their concerns are. So absolutely, they have a role.
You just mentioned taxpayers. One of the implications of COVID-19 that we found in the Belmont Journal and on News Now is, and people I think are aware of this, is the impact of COVID-19 on Belmont small businesses. Yeah. How do you, do you have an opinion?
How
do you involve a small business in this?
Look, so the Belmont Business Association, we used to have a connection to them. I'm not certain to what extent we connect with them. They represent the businesses in Belmont Center. I did for a while. There was an organization in Cushing Square. I think it's still active, or perhaps it isn't, that we need to engage them as well because they represent the interests of Cushing Square. And then we also have to engage on Waverly Square and listen to their concerns, I think a number of them have really been impacted and just hanging on by a thread. And we've lost some businesses, right? Now that we're sort of coming out of it, we're getting vaccinated. Spring and summer is upon us. I think a lot of the restaurants in Belmont Center will, again, start to flourish. But I know they struggled. We would get takeout every night to some different restaurant to try to continue to support their efforts. But, I know they were taking substantial cuts in revenue, right? It wasn't the same.
And I'd like you to look at one other stakeholder group too. We've had a lot of people speak on behalf of students in this election, both in the school committee race and on the override race. Assuming that our kids are the future,
they are.
How do you reach out to the student population to say it's your future we're talking about?
That's a great point. Yeah, we've always relied on the school committee sort of funnel to the select board the concerns of students, right, or the school administration. Maybe we need to do a better job of reaching out in that way to our high school and middle school students, to some sort of student council, that can advise select board members. And I'm not trying to usurp the authority and the responsibility of the school committee. Clearly, that's their responsibility. But, we need to hear firsthand some of their concerns. So I like that idea, Roger. We always rely on parents to sort of tell us what the students want. Sometimes the students might have a different point of view, right? I know our kids did, right? We always told them what we thought was best for them, and they said, no, Dad.
And your kid and my kid went to school together.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and they're both doing great. So your daughter's beautiful and great, very successful. I'm hearing a lot about her from you. So they did well through the Belmont school system, didn't they? Both of them, yeah.
They did. I do want to remind people that we're standing here on the steps of Belmont's Town Hall. We're expecting our town clerk to be out to give us the election results for today's Belmont municipal election. We're expecting Ellen to be out any minute here. And I have with me right now, Mark Palillo, who is going to be newly elected, not really re-elected, but newly elected
That's true, yeah, because it's not consecutive terms, so it's like
Yeah.
newly elected, yeah.
to the Belmont Select Board. And Mark has done just about everything having to do with finances that there is to be done here in the town of Belmont. Mark, I'd like to look forward again. And this question doesn't assume either a no vote or a yes vote on the override. But to what extent did you get the impression that there's been a sea change in involvement? And maybe there hasn't been. We moved from an election in 2019, where no race was contested, to really some very hotly contested races.
School committee, yeah, and I think some of the precincts as well for town meeting members, right?
Right, in the Housing Authority, the Board of Health.
Yeah. I think that's great. I mean, look, when I decided to run again, whenever you decide to run as a politician, you always assume there's going to be a campaign. That I welcome the fact that it was unopposed? Absolutely. Of course, anyone would. Did I not do something because of that? No, I tried to get out there and speak about the issues and my concerns and try to listen to residents. And it was easier with the Zoom thing, so that was great. I think there needs to be more participation. It's hard, Roger, because young families in town that are raising their children like we did, and you've always been very active, of course. To engage, even as a town meeting member or on a committee is hard because if it's, two spouses are working and coming home to take care of the children and getting them ready for school the next day, it's hard. But yeah, we need folks that have moved to town, that are becoming active, to become more active and to run for these races. We certainly, I think you and I would both agree, probably need more diversity on the select board. We haven't had that. 3 women since 1859 is really not an acceptable number. And, I did talk to some women before I decided to run again. They just weren't ready. And not just women, people of color or other diverse, we're becoming more diverse as a community. And I think, I'd like to see more diversity going forward as well. So in all of our races, so we need to continue to support that. I think the select board has to sort of develop succession plans, if you will. I mean, to reach out into the community, get people engaged, get them interested, have them understand, what the commitment is, and perhaps they'll decide to run.
One thing you just said, and you talked about it a minute ago. Are you having fun, Mark?
I am. I'm
Good.
enjoying the conversation, yeah. Are the results coming out? Yeah. Jeff? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe one more and then you can cover the results, yeah.
I think no matter whether the yes vote wins or the no vote wins tonight, one of the dangers of a campaign like this is the accusations that begin tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
How do you, as a member of the select board, help prevent that or help?
I just rise above it. I think that we as members of the board need to sort of understand that we represent all the residents, whether you voted yes or no, and rise above it and not sort of accuse, people of tactics during the campaign or, participation during the campaign. And I mean, the result is what it's going to be, right? And so we can't do anything about history, but what we can do is try to set a positive tone for the future. It's going to take a while. I think the emotions are really high during this campaign, and whether it's the yes campaign or the no campaign, whoever is successful here, the losing campaign is going to be very upset and very disappointed because I'm sure they put a lot of time and effort into their position. And so it's going to take time to sort of work past that emotion. And I think the board has to sort of work through it as well and rise above it and say, look, we represent all residents and we're committed to doing what's best for the town going forward.
Thanks for
You're welcome, Roger.
joining
Great
us.
to see you.
Yes.
Have a good night. We'll wait for the results. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
We are standing here on the steps of Town Hall, of Belmont's Town Hall, and we are expecting the town clerk any moment or any minute now to come out and give us the results of today's town election. We have with us, or I have with me right now, the chair of the Yes for Belmont campaign. What are you hearing?
Yes, well, from our the results that we've got, the override did not pass, and it looks like the no campaign has prevailed.
What do you do tomorrow morning?
Well, you know,
I'll give you a day off. What do you do next week?
yeah, thank you. Well, you know, obviously we're very disappointed with the results and deeply concerned about the future of Belmont. I think that the challenges that the town faces aren't going to go away. So I think we're hopeful that we can all come together as a community and continue to work to try to address those challenges. But we're going to have some tough years ahead as Belmont residents. I mean, all of our elected officials and professionals who are looking at the budget all said the same thing. I mean, we needed this override now, and I'm very deeply concerned about what the future holds. I also just want to say I believe we ran a really, you know, I'm proud of the campaign that we ran, and we really want to say just thank you to everybody who came out to support the campaign. It was overwhelming, and I just hope we laid the groundwork for a successful campaign in the future. But kudos to everybody who supported the Yes campaign. It was a great race.
The results, do you attribute them to a belief that Belmont is not well run, or is it a response to COVID?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably all of the above. You know, I think there was a lot of headwinds we were facing with this election, and I think that, or this race rather, and I think that there's a combination of the pandemic and people having concerns about the economy. I think there was frustration with the schools and with the town, a lot of anger that sort of came out in how people voted. And I think, you know, just the message, the federal aid that we heard about, though I don't believe that's going to solve our problems, I think that, you know, confused the message. I think all of those things made it tough. April is a tough time for overrides. The size of the electorate is much smaller. So I think we had a lot of headwinds. I think, you know, given all those challenges, I'm really proud of the work that we did do, and we were able to get, you know, a significant number of votes, just not enough to win.
Thinking of the positive things, assuming that the override does not pass today, thinking of the positive things, it seems as though there has been a real involvement of students in the override campaign. Is that a change? Do you think that will continue?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to say that's probably been the most fantastic part about this campaign, is just getting the chance to work with some of our high school students and to see that the work that they did in support of the override, and though not successful, I mean, they were just phenomenal. And I think no matter where you fell on this race, we can all agree that we are all better off as a society and as a town if our students are involved and are engaged. And I personally feel just so indebted to them and so just like awed by them. I mean, they poured their heart and soul into this campaign, and they just did phenomenal work, and I just really want to celebrate them and say thank you to them. It was amazing.
Can I ask you about your campaigning tactics for a minute as well? Social media. To what extent has social media become a primary mechanism for reaching out to the community with your message?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that is another factor in this campaign that I didn't mention, is that normally what we've done in past overrides is gone door to door and tried to talk to as many voters as possible, and we couldn't do that this year because of the pandemic. I mean, we tried to do it in other ways through phone calling and texting and virtual media, but it's not the same as having a conversation with a voter. And so I hope that, you know, in future campaigns we can go back to that, because these issues are complex. I mean, it is really complicated, and I think at the end of the day, being able to have that conversation with a voter is really, really helpful. And I also just think social media, you know, from my experience, is not the best vehicle. People can hide behind social media as a way to say things they might not say to somebody in person. And I would hope that, you know, one, we can have a little more civility on social media going forward, and everybody, you know, act as kind as possible. And two, that we can go back to having conversations with voters.
I'd like to ask you the same question I just asked Mark Palillo as well. And that is, how do you get people to pay attention to something as arcane as a town budget
Yeah.
in a time when they're not facing an not needing to make a decision on an override?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's actually been something that's been on my mind. Like, win or lose, I was thinking about, what can we do to try to educate voters and make people aware of what's going on? There will be, and we will need another override. I mean, there is no doubt about that. And so in between now and when the next one's on the ballot, to really make sure, educate people. And again, I do think it comes back to that, idea of having conversations, going door to door. And I think it's also, just really important that we can get back to a point where we're all speaking from the same fact base. What I was trying to say with this campaign was, look, some people may say that they would rather see cuts to the schools, the library, or town services rather than higher taxes. So be it. But let's not make an argument that's not, based on facts. Let's actually give voters all the information and let them make an informed choice. Now, that's really hard because things are not black and white all the time. There are gray areas. This is really complex. And so that is really hard to do. But I would just hope that in the future we can get to the point where we can at least all agree on a fact base and then move from there and educate voters from there.
Is the Yes for Belmont campaign, I don't want to call it a party, but do you have the makings of a community of interest that may take a more active role or more active interest in how the budget is structured and what goes where?
Yeah, no, I definitely think some of us have been talking about that. I mean, I think there is, to your point, there is the need for people to get information and for the case to be made over time as to why Belmont finances are the way they are and why we need overrides periodically to address them. And because these issues are so complex, it's hard to do that in like a 2-month period. And so I do think that, there's the potential that we might, look to do something in the future. Right now, we're just focused on saying thank you to everyone who came out to support us. It really was, just an overwhelming level of support. Even though we weren't successful, so many people came out to help with the campaign, and it really was such a huge team effort, and that was really exciting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Absolutely,
Okay.
surely. We're standing here on the steps of Belmont's Town Hall. We're waiting for local election results from our town clerk. The word on the street that we're getting is that the no vote has prevailed or will prevail today. That is not official word. Nothing is official until we hear directly from the town clerk. We are expecting to hear from our town clerk here in the next few minutes. Do we? Oh, we don't. In addition to the override, there are, of course, other elections on the ballot today, and the other elections or the other decisions that are on the ballot should not be lost in the discussions of the override. In addition to the question of whether Belmont should be allowed to increase its property taxes more than 2.5%, we have a contested school committee race. There are 5 people running for 2 positions on the school committee. The school committee has 3-year terms. 2 of those folks look like they are prevailing at this point. That's the word that we've been hearing from the street. In addition to the school committee, we have a contested race for the Belmont Board of Health between incumbent Steve Fiore and challenger Adrian Allen. We also have a contested race for the Belmont Housing Authority. the Belmont Housing Authority pits two longtime Belmont residents. Tommy Olson, Thomasina Olson, is running for election, and she is opposed by longtime Belmont resident Ann Mann. I have Tommy Olson with me. Yes.
Sorry to keep you waiting. It's just she's taking care of the results at the moment. She'll be out in a few minutes to read everything. Sorry.
We've just been told that that our town clerk will be out with results here in just a few minutes. Anyway, we have Tommy Olson with us tonight. Tommy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
The Housing Authority, it's a strange animal. It's local in many ways, but it's not a town entity. What's going on with that campaign?
What's going on with campaign, or what's going on?
Or what's going on with the election?
I'm not sure. I know that it's been in three precincts. It's pretty close, and excuse me, I have to put that off. So it's very tight in the three precincts that I know of, 3, 5, and there was one other that Franklin knew. I don't know what precinct that was, but it was
Precinct
2. Okay, so it was very tight. I don't really know. I mean, people say it's difficult to beat an incumbent. I mean, maybe that's what it was. I know I worked pretty hard. I know that the things I plan to do, if elected, and I would look forward to that. But we have to wait for the results. That's all. I would say that I also am very pleased that the no vote won. I think it gives us time in the town to look at our budgets and determine how to move forward. So, but I really don't know. It was, as Franklin said, there were 3 votes in one that were separated by. So it's hard, I guess, for the electorate to know what the Housing Authority needs and what each candidate can bring. So that's probably, I would think, the reason for the closeness in the votes.
And Tommy, one of the questions in the override campaign is the capacity of homeowners to pay.
Right.
You've been active with the Council on Aging. You've been active with the Belmont Housing Trust. Can you tell our viewers about the socioeconomic diversity?
We talk about Belmont. I don't know, maybe the news in Greater Boston thinks that we're a very Tony town. That implies that all of us are making 6-figure incomes, but that's not really what goes on here. We have people who live in the family home, maybe inherited the family home. We have people who raised their children here in Belmont and are elderly. People don't like to leave where they lived. And so we heard from a lot of seniors, how is this going to impact me? And in the Council on Aging, we brought them, as you may have interviewed when you interviewed Mark, he actually brought a debate to the Council on Aging so that people could get a good look at the different candidates. So I think that the seniors in particular just feel like they're being pushed out of their homes, and for what reason? It really isn't clear. We are going to get a big amount of money from I believe it's the ARP. The
federal aid.
The federal aid, right. So, it just seems like bad timing. People were already hurting for a year, being kept in and finally getting a breath of fresh air because they're getting vaccines. But to have to get a sort of a sucker punch that here comes a big increase to your taxes, and for what? The rationale was not clear.
Okay.
So
Well, thanks for
thank
joining us
you.
tonight. Franklin, can we can't bring Franklin.
I only have so many words. I'm not Mark Palillo.
Well,
She'll be on in a sec.
we are standing here on the steps of Town Hall tonight. We're waiting for the town clerk to come out and give us official results. What we have been hearing from people that we've talked to here is that is several significant results. We've been hearing that the no vote on the override will likely prevail tonight. We've heard that the two incumbents on the school committee have probably not been reelected, all unofficial. We will hear nothing official until our town clerk comes out and gives us the results. We're expecting Ellen to be out here in the next few minutes. We have not heard any results about the Board of Health. With the Board of Health, incumbent Steve Fiore is being opposed by challenger Adrian Allen. We have no word on that, and we just talked with Thomasina Olson. Tommy Olson, a longtime Belmont resident who is running for the Belmont Housing Authority, and she said that what she had heard was that the race for the Housing Authority is very, very close in the three precincts that she's received information on. We are waiting for Ellen to come out. It is a point at which Belmont tonight, it seems as though it's a point where Belmont can go one of two ways today or after tonight. Belmont, irrespective of whether the yes vote on the override prevails or the no vote on the override prevails, we can seek to come together as a community and move forward, or we can alternatively become accusatory and look at each other and say, but for you, this and that would not have happened. We had been speaking with Mark Palillo, who is a former member of the Select Board. Mark has been elected again to the Belmont Select Board. One of his comments to us was that he believes that as a member of the Select Board, there is an absolute need for increased communication. We've spoken with Elizabeth Dorn, who was chair of the Yes for Belmont committee, and she expressed the opinion that even though she's hearing that the no vote will prevail tonight, that one of the needs in the future is for members of the community to have increased conversations about what's going on with the within the town government and within the town budget. One interesting conversation we had earlier tonight was about the future activity of town meeting. Belmont is a town meeting form of government where the community elects 36 representatives from each of the town's 8 precincts. The town meeting is Belmont's legislative body. The select board, the school committee, the warrant committee, all have their say on what the budget for the town of Belmont will be, but the ultimate say of what the budget for the town of Belmont is lies with town meeting, lies with those 280 plus representatives of the various neighborhoods and the various precincts in the town. It will be town meeting who will review the budget that will be presented, whether or not the override passes or whether the override fails. It will be town meeting who will decide whether there will be changes, not only in how much is spent, but in where money is spent when the budget goes before town meeting.
See you at the BC. We're gonna have a good team.
248 minutes.
We're gonna have a really good team.
Double budget help.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't see the battery.
So what time you want to go? What time you want to die? Where you want to go?
Do I
Everyone.
introduce her?
Back from the right. Let's get together. You're on.
We're standing here on the steps of Belmont's Town Hall. We've been waiting for our town clerk with official election results, and we have her, and I assume that means we have them.
Well, we have unofficial election results. It won't be
Unofficial.
final and official for a few more days. Okay.
Our town clerk.
So I'm Ellen O'Brien Cushman, the town clerk. I'm going to try and speak up just so you can hear me through my mask. I apologize, it took a little long. We had a little hiccup with our printer, as we've all suffered at home. We had the same problem. So tonight I'm only going to read the town-wide results, and they will be posted all on the website shortly. So for Board of Health, I'm doing them in order of the contested races and then the question, as they appeared on the ballot. So for the Board of Health, the winner of the Board of Health by votes of 3067 is Adrian Allen to Stephen Fiore 2950. There were 12 write-ins, and there were 2,192 blanks in that race. 8,221 people voted, and we're in good shape. I think that's, I don't remember, I just pulled the number, I think it's 47%. Housing Authority for 5 years, which is the only one of the contested races for Housing Authority. Ann Mann wins with 3,773 votes. Thomasina Olson, 2831. There were 14 write-ins, and there was 1,603 blank ballots or blank votes, totaling again 8221. So for a school district or school committee, we have 5 candidates. 2 will win, and the 2 winners are Jamal Say with 3,989 votes, and Meg Moriarty at 3,838 votes. In addition, we have Evelyn Gomez, Garcia Gomez, 2,355 votes, and Tara Donner, 1,995 votes, and Tim Flood with 908 votes. In that race, there were 23 write-ins and blanks, 3,334, and again, the totals come out. So you just have to remember, again, when people on the blanks, nothing to be concerned about. When people do not vote for all the people, they don't put in for 2, then they add up as blanks and undercounts. So don't let those numbers throw you off. We're looking at the affirmative numbers. And finally, for the question 1, which is the override question, total was no prevailed, so the question was defeated. 4,539 votes to yes, 3,526 votes. There were only 156 votes left blank, and again, the total number of ballots cast, 8,221. This ends the reading. So all of the town meeting members, you will be able to find your results online, and those are precinct-based ones. They're already being accounted for at each of the precincts. They'll be posted most likely tomorrow. Anyone who has a provisional ballot, which meant that we weren't sure whether you were registered or not, we couldn't prove it. We will be investigating and researching all of those tomorrow. And so our official results will be posted online by the end of the week. And I will certify to the Secretary's office by the end of the week. Thank you. All set?
Yes. Thank you, Alan. Thanks for joining us. You've been watching live election night coverage from Belmont's Town Hall. This has been brought to you by News Now, the Belmont Journal's update on what's going on in the community of Belmont. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll talk to you again.
Yay! The battery had good time.